Thanks for your interest in using the Mason County Promise Scholarship at West Shore Community College. To follow is a little bit of information for Promise Scholars starting with the class of 2022. So one of the things that Promise Scholars probably know by now is that the Promise covers 72 credits at West Shore. It also covers any partner programs that West Shore has agreements with. So, for example, Ferris has a business program, Michigan State has an agriculture program, and West Shore also participates in Michigan College's online courses. And so any of those courses, as long as they're approved by your advisor at West Shore, can be covered by Promise. The Promise covers tuition and mandatory fees after federal and state aid, and I'll explain this in a little bit. Students have to enroll in a minimum of 9 credits in the fall and winter semester. We do not have a minimum for summer semester because in summer classes are usually condensed in time, and so if you were taking 9 credits, it would feel more like 18, which is mega full time. So we want students to have a comfortable pace. Full-time is typically 12 credits, so 9 credits is just under full-time, which allows for students who might be working part-time or just want to try college out and see what their pace should be like for them to be successful. And students, once they've graduated, have up to 4 academic years to use those 72 credits. Students are required to renew each year, and they are also required to meet our minimum standards, and I'll explain those in a moment. The Promise is a middle dollar scholarship, and so what that means is for all students who apply to the Promise and intend to use the scholarship, they have to apply for federal financial aid and state aid, and they can do that through completing their FAFSA application at fafsa.gov each year. This year, the FAFSA is for the 2022-23 academic year. And then once students' FAFSA application is completed, if they receive any federal or state grant aid, and it's only grant dollars, so nothing you have to pay back, you don't have to take out loans or anything like that, but once students receive federal and state grant aid, that is applied to their tuition and mandatory fees first. And then if there's any amount left over that they still owe, because sometimes students don't have enough aid to cover all of their course tuition and fees, the Promise pays for whatever isn't covered. Some students won't receive any financial aid through federal or state grants, and so if that's the case, then the Promise will cover all of their tuition and fees. So it's a different amount for all students. The Promise is not a set scholarship, and the Promise is paid directly to West Shore each semester, so students will not receive any sort of check based on their Promise and their grant aid from the federal government. So that's Pell Grants typically, or their TIP funds would be applied first, and the Promise would cover after if they have any additional need for funds to cover tuition and fees. The Promise does not cover books right now. We don't cover room and board, and we don't cover any non-tuition and fees related expenses. So fines, things like that, if you have anything like that. Student activities fee, typically those are covered by other resources and not by the Promise. Scholarship dollars, because we're middle dollar, scholarship dollars are applied beyond the Promise after the Promise. So for instance, if you received a scholarship from the Community Foundation for $1,000, that scholarship will probably be available to you in the form of a refund check, and you could apply that toward books or other fees that you might have, or it might be reissued to you in the form of a check from West Shore that you can use for other living expenses. So scholarships are a good thing. All students are encouraged to apply for scholarships, and West Shore's foundation is really generous with scholarships, so we strongly encourage all of our Promise scholars each and every year to apply for scholarships through the West Shore Foundation. We also encourage students to apply for other scholarships outside of West Shore Community College. So Community Foundation has scholarships, of course, but there are other resources as well. That scholarship is going to be money in your pocket if it's available for things besides tuition and mandatory fees. Most students by now from the class of 2022, if they've applied for the promise, they have received a notice to let them know that they either qualify or have been denied. And I'm guessing you're here because you have received information from me in the mail or by email that says you qualify for using the promise. So once you've received that letter, you want to make sure that you do a few things to follow through to make sure that you actually get the funding. So one of those is that you complete in-person or online orientation at West Shore. And there's one more date remaining for this summer 2022 on July 28th. There's still space in that in-person. Otherwise, all students who haven't completed an orientation, in order to be able to register for classes, you will have to complete your orientation online if you can't get to one of those in-person orientations. The advantage of in-person orientation is you get to meet with an advisor, or you have the option to meet with an advisor who can recommend classes specifically related to your degree, or classes that'll be flexible for any degree program if you haven't decided yet. So that's really helpful, and we strongly encourage all of our scholars to go to in-person orientation. You also need to make sure that whether you register after online or register at in-person orientation, that you register for 9 credits for both fall and winter semester. Winter semester registration will happen a little later in the year, but talk with your advisor in both situations and see what they'd recommend. If you do online orientation, you'll get information about contacting your advisor after you've completed that orientation. Students want to make sure that they complete their FAFSA and have their FAFSA information sent to West Shore. And that's actually in the FAFSA form each year. You want to make sure that you choose West Shore as your first institution if that's where you plan to attend college. And you have to complete that FAFSA to be eligible to receive the promise. And then don't drop below 9 credits in the drop add period. So this is a question I get from a lot of students is, if I withdraw from a class, do I have to pay that funding back? So here's something that it's important to know up front if you've never taken college classes before. Much like in high school, there's a drop add period at the very beginning of each semester where students can decide, do I want this class on my schedule or not? If you drop below 9 credits during that drop add period, the promise will not cover you at all. So you want to make sure that during that drop add period, that whatever you decide to do, you don't drop below 9 credits. After the drop add deadline has passed, and I think that's the end of the second week of each semester, after that's passed, then you can withdraw from a class. And course withdrawal means that it will show that you've attempted the class, but you won't get a grade for that class, and you actually can stop attending after that withdrawal time. Course withdrawals do not necessarily count against your promise, and you don't have to pay the promise back for courses you choose to withdraw from. However, if you withdraw or fail a lot of courses, more than about 30% of your courses, then you may run into issues with eligibility for financial aid in the future, which will eventually affect your promise eligibility too. So you want to make sure that you really talk to an advisor if you're considering both dropping or withdrawing from any class, to make sure that what you're deciding to do won't affect you in the future. And if you're deciding to do it, that you have all the information you need to make a good decision. But basically, make sure you have 9 credits after the drop add period has passed in the beginning of the semester. And then if you withdraw from a course later, it typically 1 or 2 courses during your college career won't affect you if you withdraw from them. So once you're at West Shore, you want to make sure that you register for classes. You attend in-person orientation if you can, or online if you can't. That you have 9 credits after the drop add period is passed in fall and winter semester. And then the promise covers your tuition and fees. And the way that we do that is we actually will get a report from West Shore Community College of all of our scholars who have been approved and how many credits they're taking. And West Shore will bill us directly for your tuition and fees. And what this means is, once you're registered for 9 or more credits, you're going to have a bill on your student account, and you're going to see that bill until we pay it. But if you know you have the promise and you know that you've completed your FAFSA and registered for 9 or more credits, you're covered. So you don't have to pay that bill up front. And if you ever have any questions about that, you can contact Mackenzie Edwards in the business office at West Shore, and she can let you know exactly how that process works. But we pay the college, we don't pay students directly. And so you will have a bill that appears on your account, but knowing that you're covered by the promise, you do not have to pay that bill for tuition and fees. For other things that aren't tuition and fees, that's your responsibility. But if you're a Promise Scholar, tuition and fees will be covered as long as you've registered and completed your FAFSA according to the guidelines here. Another thing for new scholars to know is that it's required to renew your FAFSA and to renew your promise each year. And the promise requests that after winter semester grades post, that's when you renew your promise. And I will send out more information about how to do that in the future, but I just want that to be on your radar. So October 1st or after each year, be sure that you complete your FAFSA renewal. However early you can is better, but typically the window of opportunity, we encourage students to complete their FAFSA between October 1st, to renew their FAFSA between October 1st and May 1st of each year. Be sure to stay registered in 9 or more credits each fall and winter. Renew the promise on our website, and our website is masoncountypromise.org. And you probably have been there already. To apply for the promise, you just return there. Instead of selecting new application, you select renew. And when you renew, I'll ask you to send in your transcript, and I send students out a reminder of how to do that each year as well. Once at West Shore, all students must maintain a 2.0 GPA and pass 67% of all of their attempted credits. And this isn't just a promise guideline, this is a federal guideline for financial aid. And so you may have heard that the promise removed its 2.0 requirement. That was only for high school graduates. All of our promise scholars at West Shore, once they're at West Shore, have to maintain that C average 2.0 or better to keep their promise each year. And so that's part of the reason that I asked for your transcript to renew, because I'll be evaluating your evaluating your progress at that point. So 67% or more, again, those would be classes. If you withdraw from 30+% of your courses each semester, then you may run into issues, or if you fail your courses each semester, you may run into issues with that completion rate as well. And if you have questions about that, talk to an advisor, talk to the financial aid office, but don't wait until it's too late. If you have concerns about your classes and how classes are going, start by talking to your professor, and then get a tutor if you can, and start early on. As soon as you know that you're struggling, and sometimes the indicator is maybe you're confused on an assignment, or maybe you didn't do well on a quiz or a test, don't keep pushing through and think it's going to get better if you just get tougher. Instead, use the resources on campus to help you. And for all scholars, I sent you a resource information sheet. There's tons of resources on campus, like tutoring, writing center support, talking with your advisor. Use those resources. Don't go it alone if things are tough. And as soon as you think you know you're struggling, reach out. Don't wait until it's really bad, because we do sometimes have promise scholars who can't use the promise each year because they haven't used their resources, or they've struggled on their own without asking for help. So do ask for help. If you have questions about using the promise, I'm here to help as well, and you can contact me anytime. jodym@ludington.org is my direct email when you send in your transcripts, or if you have anything official that you need to talk to the promise, you can also send it to info@masoncountypromise.org. You can find more information on our website, or scan that little QR code right there. Our promise is here to help you, and we want to see you succeed. So if I can do anything, please feel free to reach out and contact me. My name is Jody Maloney. I'm the Promise Director here, and I'm here to help. Thanks, and have a great semester at West Shore.